Thanks to Charm Diamond Centers, the Canadian Love Map podcast has been sharing the stories that shape us for 10 seasons. Tales of romance, resilience, family, friendship, and community from every corner of Canada. This is Charm's Canadian Love Map. Peter O'Brien, welcome to the Canadian Love Map podcast.
Thanks so much, Nancy.
Okay, so you are a professor in Latin literature, but you also happen to be an expert in ice cream.
I don't claim expertise in ice cream. I just know what I like to eat.
It's been assigned to you lately, though, hasn't it? You've
has.
become a media darling around the subject of ice cream.
It has. One of my colleagues at King's has taken to referring to me as Professor Ice Cream, which I don't know how to respond to that, but I answer. So.
How do you say that in Latin?
Oh my goodness, I don't know what they didn't know what ice cream was, so I'd have to investigate that.
They didn't have refrigeration.
No,
of course. Oh my gosh. Okay, so Professor Ice Cream. How did this all start?
Well, so I, as a child, was brought up in a family which had an ice cream connection. On my mom's side, the Hart family had a creamery on Brunswick Street, and
in Halifax.
And the sort of outward-facing commercial side of that creamery was ice cream. It was called Polar Ice Cream. Mm-hmm. And my grandfather managed it. And when I was a kid in the 70s and 80s, weekly or even more often visits to my grandparents' place for lunch or dinner was just something that happened all the time. And there was always ice cream served. My grandfather was an ice cream fanatic, and they had a deep freeze, which was always implausibly stocked, with big commercial size vats of it.
That's my favorite kind of deep freeze, when it's implausibly stocked with ice cream. That's good.
Yeah, with all sorts of flavors. Mm-hmm. And they served it at lunch and at dinner all the time, and my grandfather ate it. And so the conversation would turn to his career, and he would talk about his favorite flavors, and he'd talk about mixing flavors. And the story I heard was that he was behind Moon Mist as a flavor. And I, in my recollection, sort of put two and two together. He visited Amherst College, not Amherst College, but the University of Massachusetts in Amherst at some point in his young life, and did a certificate program at something he called Ice Cream University.
How can you take us back even further and tell us how he came to be there? What had happened before in his life?
Well, he was born, I think, in 1917, died in 1998, which is why we can't really verify a lot of these recollections. Mm-hmm. He was the oldest son in a family with business interests in Halifax and Nova Scotia, one of which was the creamery. And I think his work life, just took him to the family business, and the creamery is where he landed, and that, I think, is where he spent most of his career.
Did he also serve in the war?
He did. He served. He did not go overseas. I think as far as he went was Ontario. I believe he was a mechanic in the Air Force, and so his ice cream career would have been interrupted somewhat by that. And I don't know whether he went down to Amherst before or after the war, whether it was in the 50s or whether it was in the 60s. But
so am I right that it was his father or father and mother who started the business?
That's a good question. I think it would go back at least that far because the family were they had various interests in lumber and mills, a wharf down on the waterfront, and the creamery was one of them. I know it was in the family at least by the 1920s.
You have ice cream in your blood, basically, running through your veins.
Yeah, I better talk to my doctor about that, I guess. But
high cholesterol.
There's a wonderful photograph from the 1920s of Polar ice cream delivery trucks lined up, about 7, 8, 10 of them in front of the armories on the Halifax Commons.
Wow.
So that's how I know it goes back at least that far.
But that also tells us a lot about how big the operation was if they had that many trucks.
Yeah. Not huge, not like today's sort of conglomerate dairies, but I think locally it was one of the larger ones, and I think on the ice cream side certainly stocked a lot of shops and so on. So
I'm making an assumption, but I'm wondering, is it safe to assume that your grandfather loved ice cream?
Yeah, it's safe to assume that. If I know nothing else, I know that. He ate it twice a day.
Amazing. Are you sure he didn't have it for breakfast? Like, do you have any way of knowing that?
I think he probably wouldn't want to have encouraged his children that way or grandchildren, but no, I'm not sure at all.
I can picture him sneaking into it for a midnight snack before bed after the kids are in bed too.
And hey, if you work in a dairy, who knows what kind of snacking habits you develop.
Yeah, well, you've got to test the product.
Of course.
Right. What is it, do you think, about ice cream that causes such a love reaction in people? I don't know many people who don't love it.
Yeah, that's a great question. I remember giving my daughter as an infant her first taste of ice cream, and just the way her face lit up with delighted surprise. There's something. I mean, I guess that maybe there's something of the early food experience of milk being transformed into something that is completely other than anything else you might be used to having. It's basic, but it's transformed into something wonderful. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like wine, right?
Yes.
The basic ingredient becomes something transporting.
Mm-hmm. What did it mean to you, this business, apart from the fact that you got it at lunch and dinner if you were at your grandparents'? What did it mean to your family having this business as you were growing up?
It's funny, the way people talk about things when it's part of their routine is maybe different than the way we nostalgize about it, in after years. And I remember it just sort of always being a sort of a fact. And I don't imagine I made too much of it until I started to really think about it. And that would have happened, as I was older, thinking about, talking to my friends who prompted the story in the first place, as I mentioned. Mm-hmm. I know we had hanging on my family home's wall a calendar from Polar Ice Cream, a Polar Ice Cream sort of promotional calendar, with a photograph of my mother licking a great big dripping ice cream cone when she was about 5 years old, with Shirley Temple curls and all of that. So it was always sort of a fixture that way. I suppose as soon as I learned to read, I would have seen Polar Ice Cream and known that was part of the story.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot in terms of contribution. And when you consider what ice cream means to people, and this is not something I've taken time to think about before, really, but there is a real sense of true contribution when it comes to making ice cream, I think, in terms of the joy it gives people.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is a joyful thing. It's like I say, it's not a necessary food, but it's somehow basic and it complementary to almost everything. Yeah, I sort of frustrate my wife sometimes because I want to put ice cream on everything in the dessert line at least, right? And she didn't grow up with that, but I did, and. It just somehow seems it's comforting, you know. It's like a dairy line to the past or something like that.
That's it. For me, I think it would be a dairy line to the past and very much connected to relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what stories have you heard or did your grandfather pass down about, you know, how ice cream connected people within families or maybe friends? I don't know.
I remember I didn't get too many stories about it, and gosh, I wish now that I'd talked to him more about it. And but he was sort of a hands-on sort of person. I mean, he was in a management role, and the family owned the business, but he really liked to work in the environment of the creamery itself, and he liked to do deliveries. So I would hear stories about him doing, you know, kind of emergency deliveries on a Sunday when the local canteen, wherever it happened to be, ran out, and he would go down and do that. So that certainly speaks to the importance of it, you know.
I love. Okay, I have this image of someone dialing 911. We need ice cream.
Yeah, ice cream emergency.
Yeah. But I think of it as being something that grandparents do with their grandkids, or you might, you know, find that a lot of people have memories of their parents going to buy them an ice cream. And it was like a step out of the everyday.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. You know, that trek to the local corner store or canteen in a park or whatever it was is or the beach. You know, that's part of the whole experience. It kind of goes along with summer, although I wouldn't limit my ice cream intake to summer alone.
Well, we're two peas in a pod in that. Trust me, I'll take ice cream any time of the year. I also think about the fact that if many of us consider vacation time with our parents, there are really core memories around vacationing with our parents if we're lucky to have had those times, because they might have been very busy otherwise. But when you're on vacation, it's almost like the parents get a chance to be present and be playing with the kids, whether you're on a trip or what have you. And I would think there's that sense with ice cream as well, because I remember going with my grandfather and with my dad, and it would be like they turned into the kid who used to love getting ice cream when they were with their older, you know, grandparent and that sort of thing. And it's a tradition really in families. Yeah,
it's funny. Some of the stories about moon mist flavor sort of touch on the sort of intersections of memory and nostalgia, but also place and vacation. So people remember moon mist in particular as a Nova Scotia thing or a maritime thing. And so you see as the flavors gain some popularity and is being reproduced in other places, some of the people who knew it from Nova Scotia in their childhood aren't sure quite what to make of that. You know, that they want to enjoy moon mist, but they don't really want to enjoy it in Ontario. They want to have to come back home to have it, because it evokes not just the taste memories, but all the other ones that go with it.
It's food as a touchstone, really.
Yeah.
What exactly is moon mist for those who don't know? And I will tell you very candidly, my kids have loved moon mist throughout their childhood. Yeah. They're adults. They probably still do. Yeah. But I've never actually had it myself. I'm sorry to say that. Peter?
Well, I'm not offended. I don't eat it a lot myself. I think the original recipe, if we sort of get down to nuts and bolts, was banana, blue raspberry, and that apparently is the real controversial point, and grape. So this trifecta of sweet fruit flavors, really.
Swirled together or mixed together?
I'm not sure what the term would be. It's not quite a complete mixture, but a sublime melding.
Are you sure you're not in marketing?
No.
Did you say melding or melting?
I said, good one.
A little of both. A little of both.
Yeah, it's sort of like a Neapolitan effect. You know, you have the three flavors present together, but they're not completely mashed up.
This podcast is made possible by the support of Charm Diamond Centers. As a proudly Canadian-owned company, they care deeply about shining a light on love. So I want to just be candid and say I'm very curious to know how you became a media darling around Moon Mist ice cream and Polar ice cream and the roots of the whole business.
Well, as I told you, I heard this story growing up and repeated it when I was a kid, probably ad nauseum to my friends, and I grew up and I didn't repeat it so much anymore, but a friend of mine who is a journalist asked me one day, we happened to meet on the street, and he said, "Hey, didn't your grandfather make Moon Mist or something like that?" And I said, "Yeah." So the story goes. And a few days later, I was approached by a journalist from the Canadian Press who did a story that was carried locally and then elsewhere. And then it seemed to have touched not a nerve, but seemed to have piqued an interest because I started getting calls from radio stations and other print media, and here I am sitting in a podcast studio for the first time.
You didn't dream this was going to happen.
No.
But it does speak to the fact that people go, "Oh, Moon Mist," and "Oh, ice cream." Their eyes light up. Their energy shifts.
Yeah. Well, and so there's the universality of the ice cream experience, which everybody loves everywhere, but there's the Moon Mist thing, which belongs to Nova Scotia, whether it belongs to my family exclusively or not. Right?
You're not being definitive about that.
I don't think I can be, So a couple of the journalists did really hard work to try to get to the root of the origin story, and they did a pretty good job of balancing out the claims. But I'm certainly not going to contradict any other origin story that seems plausible.
What became of Polar ice cream?
Well, this I think is part of the complication of the origin story. So it probably in the late 60s or very early 70s, they sold and it ultimately became part of this amalgamated dairy called Twin Cities, which eventually was absorbed by Farmers. And so Farmers was producing the original Moon Mist that my grandfather would have recognized. But at the same time, Scotsburn, a rival dairy on the North Shore of Nova Scotia, produced it as well. And then Agripoor absorbed Farmers, and I think is involved with Scotsburn as well. I think Scotsburn may be part of it. So the rival flavors were marketed by the same company ultimately, and they opted for the blue bubblegum replacement instead of the blue raspberry.
I was going to say it does sound like the business got melded.
Yeah.
The ice cream all got melded.
Yeah, all mixed up. And so there's a local man who worked as a food scientist for Farmers Dairy early in the 70s who remembers the invention, I suppose, of moon mist under his watch. At that point, Farmers and Twin Cities were two separate entities, as I understand it. So that may be true. I just don't know. And my grandfather isn't around to answer for it.
What is your favorite memory of having ice cream as a kid? Is there something that stands out for you?
Well, I guess there are so many of them. As I said, I'm a fan of mixing ice cream with other things, and I love ice cream just as it reaches the point of melting into blueberry pie, and the crust is warm, but the ice cream is cold, and somehow there's a beautiful congealing of blueberries and blueberry liquid with the ice cream. That would kind of be evocative for me.
If you listen really carefully, you can hear listeners across the country and beyond starting to salivate. That's a very good description. Oh my gosh, that is it. And it's such a treat, I think, that we've all grown up with. Mm-hmm. There's a reason most of us love ice cream, because it has that sense of specialness. Mm-hmm. And it being a treat.
Yeah.
And maybe it's partly unlike your family. Most of us don't have ice cream every day. So when we do, it's like it brings out the child in us, and it's like, oh, ice cream.
Right.
I'm 5 years old again.
Yeah, exactly.
On vacation.
Yeah, the ultimate comfort food, I think, for sure.
And are you a wealthy man because of your inheritance from Polar ice cream?
No. That the story would be much easier if I was.
Yes.
I don't think the family made any particular fortune off of moon mist. So.
I was being facetious, but it would have been a wonderful surprise if you said yes, Nancy. As a matter of fact, I am. And I keep all my money in the freezer with the ice cream. How many containers of ice cream do you have in your freezer right now?
Right now, that's a great question. There's one.
One?
One.
Okay, what flavor?
I think it's a Haagen-Dazs vanilla, actually, French vanilla.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to limit it, though. Like, you can't. It's like you say, you can't go through an entire life eating it every day, unless you're my grandfather, I suppose.
I'm all about the chocolate or chocolate peanut butter.
Yeah, it's that's a great question. Whether to put stuff in it or to put it on stuff, or just to enjoy it plain.
And is it a personality test to say what is your favorite ice cream? What do you think? This might be outside your area of expertise, but I am curious.
Well, I mean, I guess like what does it mean that I don't particularly like moon mist?
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Though I'm very
what would
proud
a therapist
of
say?
I don't know. I'm proud of the story. When I did the first news story, the photographer bought me a moon mist in 2023, and that was the first that I'd had in probably 30 years, and the last I've had since then. So, but I'm evading your question, obviously. Is it an indication of character? Well, if you meet a 50-something person and they tell you that their favorite flavor is rum and raisin, or
that was my mom's.
Yeah, well, or orange pineapple or something like that. I think, or maple walnut. I think that says something about somebody's connection to their roots. This is somebody who values that tradition of eating, and they haven't thrown off the old flavors for something newfangled and sophisticated.
I'm just curious to ask you, what kind of a person was your grandfather?
He was a gentleman, very quiet. But he had this sort of quirky maverick side to him as well. You know, he grew up in Halifax, and he had a weakness for health fads, actually. And
Ironically.
Ironically. And one of the things, by the way, he was also, one of these naturally thin people. So he could eat as much of anything that he wanted and still look the same, the same waist size when he was 20 as he did when he was 80.
Good genes.
But he would swim every day in the Northwest Arm as a youth, like every day through the winter. You know,
Wow.
He was kind of ahead of that trend.
The ice dipping or the cold immersion.
Yeah. No, he had a little shack down there that he would use to change in, and
that's kind of funny for a guy who makes ice cream.
Yeah, I guess it is. Yeah, I guess that's the origin of the polar dip or something like that. The dipped ice cream confection.
Right. Oh my gosh.
But he was a ballroom dancer. He and my grandmother were champion ballroom dancers all their lives, but generally not a flamboyant person, not ostentatious or proud even. He was just a very kind, quiet man.
But do you think that he took satisfaction from creating a product that people loved and brought them so much joy?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I'm sure that was part of his enjoyment, you know, and his retirement years, which was when I predominantly knew him. He was still eating the ice cream and, I think still getting it somehow through back channels, you know, in these big cardboard tubs. He wasn't getting it at Sobeys.
From a bootlegger, ice cream bootlegger.
Maybe.
That's great, Peter. I really appreciate you sharing this story with me. It's just lovely, and it's interesting when you stop to think about something for the first time and go, oh, yeah, that actually is light in the darkness for a lot of people.
For sure. I've had a few of those moments right here with you. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Is there anything we haven't talked about that we should? Did we miss anything that you've covered with your other?
I don't know. I don't know if you really wanted to go into the depths of the commercial origin story. I'm certainly not an expert on it, but there are some good news stories in the Toronto Star. I think in particular really took the deepest dive and managed to blend the two strands, my grandfather's and farmers, together in a very, very nice and comforting way.
Oh, really? But that was more the business.
Well, it's
growth,
about who came up with it and why, or the circumstances under which it was first produced.
It occurs to me it's a little bit like the origins of hockey. Windsor, Nova Scotia claims it, but there are other places that do. I know there's somewhere in Ontario that does as well.
Right.
And I wondered, would it matter to you if you found out moon mist hadn't really been invented by your grandfather?
You know, I don't think it would bother me at all. And I'm sort of in the business of complex origin stories and recognizing that that narratives seldom have a very straightforward, simple genesis, and I loved my granddad, and this was his story or my story about him, and nothing would really change that.
Right, stories are subjective, and family stories more than anything, probably.
Yeah, true.
Even I have a family. I come from a family with 6 kids, so 5 siblings, and we can all recount the exact same occasion in very different ways.
Mm-hmm. Of course. Yeah.
So here's to Moon Mist and your grandfather and all the happiness he's given people all these years.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Thanks to Charm Diamond Centers, the Canadian Love Map podcast has been sharing the stories that shape us for 10 seasons. Tales of romance, resilience, family, friendship, and community from every corner of Canada. This is Charm's Canadian Love Map.